Hello darlings, welcome to my channel, Authentic Beauty Handmade Dolls and Crafts. I am Cassandra George Sturgis. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make Geraldine a mermaid out of a single pair of socks. Thank you so much for watching. The first thing you want to do is click on the link above to download the pattern from my Authentic Beauty magazine website. Once you download the pattern, you're going to cut it out. You should put it on a file folder or some type of cardboard paper, and you're going to trace it onto your sock. I like to use a Jelly Roll pen. I love them because the markings are very nice and crisp, and they do not bleed to the other side. And when I'm sewing, I can see the tracings very well, and maybe when you get in your 50s you need to see well, okay? And so, but I think you should also watch the video because you'll see exactly how I am lining up the pattern pieces, and especially the waist portion, because I don't think it is intuitive. Like sometimes I can look at something and just figure out how to do it, and sometimes I think it works better if I just have a little visual guidance. As you see, once I trace the upper portion of the mermaid's body, I'm going to cut the head off. You may also stuff this doll, allowing the head to remain intact. It's just, to me, it's easier to sculpt the doll's head, cutting it away from the body, and also because I like to place this crystal coat glaze in the eyes, I like to prop the head so that it dries evenly. So this is what I personally prefer, to cut the head off of the body and then sew it back on. In my previous videos, I would cut out all of the parts to the body first, and then we would sculpt the head later. But because the head is more, I don't want to use the word challenging, but more complex, we're going to start with the head first. Now, when I make my other type of cloth dolls, I usually say you want to stuff it until it's nice and taut, and you can pluck it and hear that echo. Not with the sock doll. Oh, no, 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 no. I don't even know if it's possible. So you just want to get it to a decent size. So remember, the sock is not designed to make dolls with, right? So it's very stretchy, and you don't want it to be stretched too much. So this is a decent size to me. I wish in a way I could make it a little bit smaller. I'm talking about the head, but this is a decent size. So once you stuff the toe portion of the sock to make the doll's head, you want to get a small puff of fiberfill about the size of a jag ball and you're going to put it in the area where you would sculpt the doll's nose. And what you want to do is just play around with that section and find the doll's nose in your imagination. And once you find the nose that you are looking for in your imagination, go ahead and capture that image using your needle. Now, even when I do this, it never turns out perfect. And when I say perfect, like, I just think sometimes we have an idea in our mind about how something is supposed to look, but then it comes out looking totally different. So just get in the ballpark. So what I'm doing, I like to put a little puff in first, in the center, a puff of fiberfill to find my nose. And now what I'm doing, I'm using some balls of fiberfill to create her cheeks, because the sock is, the way it's made is kind of flat, so I want to give the face a little structure. So I create, I'll say, about the size of a jag ball and a half for each cheek. I'm just right now just giving myself an image, so I'm putting it in there, and now I see, okay, this is going to work. But before I actually begin to sculpt, Geraldine's nose, I am going to take the puffs of fiberfill out for the cheeks and put them back in later. And you should see I am being very firm about squishing the head into shape. And when you're sculpting her head with your hands, I want you to let her energy come through you. Just pretend that you know what you're doing. Pretend that you got this in the bag and this doll is going to turn out perfectly fine. Sometimes when I fret and I worry, it's like it kills the energy. So just go ahead and just feel free, just let her energy come through, shape the head. Once you find the nose, like I'm doing here in the video, you want to go ahead and start sculpting the nostrils. Now, sometimes I start sculpting the doll from the bridge of the nose. Like, I start where I feel like it. Like, I know there are some people who have rules, like, you should always start at the bridge of the nose. Or you should, no, start where you feel. I'm being very honest about that. And just keep going until it feels right. For me, I'm a feeling person, and when something feels right, that's what I go with. Not what the rules are, not what people tell me to do, just what feels good. So now that I have put the needle in and, to sculpt the nostrils, I'm putting the stick pins around the nose to tighten the nostrils in place, and especially for a cloth doll, because the doll is so soft to me. It's like sometimes when I use a cloth doll, not a sock, I don't always use the needles to sculpt the nose. But I feel like for the sock doll, it just needs a little bit more reinforcement. But again, use your own feelings. The first doll I ever made, I named her after my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, Rebecca. And I mean, when I say first doll that I ever made. And she was, of course, anatomically correct. And her nose, the shape, you know how I draw the side profile of the face? And I drew a point for her nose, and that was her nose. And I loved her with all my heart and soul, and she is still in my home. I still have her, and I loved her so much. I didn't think I could love another doll. One of the things that I have learned about making dolls is that it is truly a love affair. It is, honestly, it is a love affair with the creation of a representation of life. Because a doll, I mean, if you think about it, when you make a car, that's representing something, but dolls are usually created after some type of human being. And I remember when I made Rebecca, I weaved in her hair. I was madly in love with her. So as you see here in this video, I'm still sculpting the nose. I wanted to slow down the video to make sure that everyone have an opportunity to really see what I'm doing. As a teacher, I teach psychology when I'm not making dolls. And I've had students come to me and say, well, I think that your class is created for people who are I'm just much more advanced. Can you go faster? But you know what? That's really not who I am. I feel like when you do something and you're sharing it for other people, you should make it in such a way that everyone can understand it. And if a person learns faster, then just skip past it or go faster or, find something else. But I want to make sure that I hope, guys, that this is a pace, that makes sense, and that so that you can understand what I'm doing. So I am now using the soul. Do you see this little cardboard oval shaped piece I'm using to trace the eyes for Geraldine? This is actually the soul for the boots for Josephine. It was sitting right here next to my computer, and I decided, why not? I was just going to freehand it, but I thought, this here looked like it'll fit, so I used it. So now what I'm doing is I'm tracing the eyes for Geraldine, and I am going to take my needle and thread, and I am going to sculpt the eye like I did before with Josephine. So I'm just going to go in through the back of her head, and I'm going to sew around the oval shape, pulling it taut, because you want to make sure that the inset has a depth to it, because you're going to pour that wonderful crystal glaze coat on the inside, which is going to give it a nice gloss. I am so in love with that product. So I'm just going to take my time and do this. I watch a lot of DIYs and tutorials on YouTube, and sometimes I think when people are sharing information, they're not sharing information, they're showing off. They're showing you how gifted and talented they are, and they're going so fast that you could never make it even if you wanted to. And I always think to myself, like, look, dude, you don't even have to do it. Like, what? You don't have to do a tutorial. Just keep it to yourself. You know, we don't mind, but I don't want to be that person. So if I'm sharing something with you, I honestly want you to get it, and I want you to be able to utilize whatever skill that, I don't even want to call it a skill, because half the time I'm just, you know, working off the top of the cuff. I don't even know if that's a saying, but I'm just working. Sometimes I come up with ideas as I'm going along, and I figure out how to do things easier, and it appears to have been a mistake, but then it works. But I want to share that with you because that'll make it easier for you. And I get a lot of my best ideas from watching tutorials and DIYs that are completely unrelated to doll making. Isn't that interesting? I mean, like, I might be watching something on how to, you know, make some type of house decoration with a bottle, or how to create a car out of cardboard. I know this is silly, but it always gives me some kind of idea that's related to making dolls. So I've completed the one eye, and now I'm going to go ahead and sew around the other eye. And when I finish sewing around both eyes and pulling it nice and taut so we can have a nice depth on the inside, we are going to go ahead and sculpt a makeshift eyelid. And we didn't do this for Josephine. And you know what? I think I prefer the Josephine method better, but I wanted to make sure that I taught myself how to do something different just for fun. So we're just going to go ahead and do that, and then we're going to sculpt the mouth. And I like to ladder stitch the lips on the inside, you know, the lips that I prepare separately, which I've already created a video for. Now guys, what I like to do is sometimes I don't feel like filming. I call it filming, but recording or video recording, because it's just a different energy. Because when I'm recording, I'm a little bit, my back is straight, I'm a little bit more stressed out. I don't want to use the word stressed out, but I'm alert. Whereas I don't want to make mistakes, and I don't want to start over, and you know, that kind of thing. But when I am sewing freehand and I'm just relaxing, I just feel like I don't mind, trying something different, or when the thread becomes tangled, it's not a big deal because I don't have to worry about editing that piece out. So I just want to tell you that one of the things I like to do is I like to make doll lips in my spare time. So let's just say, well, Scandal is no longer on TV. Oh, I want to break. Okay, let's not talk about that. And so if there's nothing on TV and and I'm not ready to grade, and you know that energy where you want to do something but you just don't really feel like doing a lot. I like to go ahead and make a batch of doll lips, and what I'll do is use like several different colors, several different sizes, and I will just sit down, because the making doll lips, I have timed myself, they take at least 30 to 45 minutes. I kid you not. Like, everything you see is sped up, but to actually draw it, and then I don't know, maybe some people can use a sewing machine to sew around those little tiny lips. I haven't been able to. I sew around the lips, and then you flip it and they're tiny. You stuff it and you sew it again, and I have found that a lot of times the lips, I have a hard time selecting a pair of lips for a doll. So usually it's rare that I make hardly ever have I ever made one pair of lips and said, okay, these are your lips. I have batches. I have like a Ziploc bag full of lips. Now I'm taking those fiber fill puffs and I am filling out her cheeks, because with the with the sock doll, you know, her head would be extremely flat, and so to give her face a little structure, that's why I wanted to give her those nice little rosy cheeks. And I'm putting a little bit more fiber fill at the bottom of her chin to give it some volume as well. So you can put as much there as necessary, because you're going to sew around that area to create an inset smile, and you're going to ladder stitch her lips into that inset smile. So you see how her face has some volume, otherwise it would just be really flat without personality. So now I am sculpting the eyelid. So what I'm doing is pretty much pinching this little area together on top of the eye. And because I'm using a knit fabric sock, it's easy to just, really, it's really nice, soft, and stretchy. So I'm just sewing that area really nice and taut over the eye, and that is going to be my makeshift eyelid. You know, one of the things I have learned from making sock dolls is I would suggest do not use nylon socks. I tried to make a doll using nylon socks and they ran like pantyhose. But if you use a knit fabric, they work really well. So I ruined. And some socks, another thing I want to tell you is that if you decide to make a sock doll, make sure that you turn the sock inside out, because in some socks the inside has a fuzzy look, and it's not nice and clear, and it's going to not work so well. So I guess what I'm saying, make sure that you look on both sides before you purchase it. And I would completely suggest that you do not buy a nylon type sock, because when you're trying to sculpt it, it will run, because it happened to me twice when I was trying to make these dolls. So I find that the knit type socks work best for sculpting and making sock dolls. When I made my first doll, I had no idea how to make, sculpt the nose or, make eyes of any sort. And the face that Rebecca has, it's an iron-on patch. I bought it from Michael's, and they don't sell those anymore. The good thing I tried to learn how to make a different type of face, but they were just like in a pack, and I think they were maybe like less than $2, and that whole, like the eyes, the eyebrows, and the mouth. It didn't come with a nose, and it was just an iron-on little patch. But I loved it. I loved it because it was very easy. So after I moved from the iron-on patch that I was in love with, I think the next time I made doll eyes, I used a white pearl. Yeah, I love baking. That is most of my dolls, especially my first dolls, my Jungle Beauty Goddesses. A lot of the dolls that you see have pearls for eyes, and I'm going to do a tutorial on how to make doll eyes using pearls as well. I am using stick pins to mark where I want her smile to begin and end. It just kind of gives me a little direction. I'm also using a Sharpie, a very fine Sharpie, to draw like a little smile. And I'm going to follow that marking with my needle and thread. I'm taking the needle in through the back and I'm pulling it nice and taut because I want a nice inset. And once I have the nice little smile inset, I am going to use the 3D lips that I have already made, and I'm going to ladder stitch them nicely in that area. Now you can also draw and paint lips in that area, which is what most doll makers do, and I just don't particularly like that look. You can also use felt. You can make felt lips, like just draw the lips on a piece of felt and then just glue it in the area. You do not have to make 3D lips. My mother hates my doll lips because she feels that, why you gotta make their lips so big? I like them, but I'm just letting you know that you don't have to do that. It's just something that I enjoy doing, and I just kind of like that 3D look. In part 2, we're going to go ahead and finish making Geraldine's face, painting her eyes. Now what you can do after you finish sculpting her face now is go ahead and use some gesso and paint the insets of her eyes, her eyelids, and where you would place makeup, and let it dry for 24 hours. I know there's a doll inside of you who is just dying to come to life. But only you can breathe life into her. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.